Good morning. My name is Sarah Stewart. I have the honor of introducing our speaker this morning.
Good,
We
thanks.
get set up. I'll tell you a little bit about her. This is Beth Poss. She'll be presenting today on emergent literacy with lesson picks. Beth Poss is an educational and technology consultant, accessibility and inclusion advocate, speech language pathologist, former special education administrator, and former assistant principal. In addition to her independent consulting, she is the director of educational programs for Lesson Picks. Beth is passionate about designing educational environments that support all students in accessing a rigorous curriculum and meeting educational outcomes. In her work with school districts, universities, and national state level organizations, she focuses on literacy, augmentative and alternative communication, universal design for learning, and inclusive educational practices. She's one of the authors of Inclusive Learning 365, EdTech Strategies for Every Day of the Year, released in August 2021.
So good morning, everyone. It is so great to be here. I'm actually super excited to be here in Alabama. I don't live in Alabama yet. I live in Maryland, but literally like this morning, we might be putting a contract on a house down in Baldwin County. So I'm like very excited to be here in Alabama today. I know it's like, I'm going to be here to talk about emergent literacy. If you want to get access to the slides, you can use the QR code, or you can use the bit.ly up there, and it's bit.ly/emergentlitalabama. So feel free to grab the slides. There's a lot of live links in the slides, links to free resources and information that you'll find really helpful for after this session or even during the session to be able to participate in some things that we are going to be doing. I am the director of educational programs with Lesson Picks, and I'm going to be talking about Lesson Picks today. But I do want to say all of the ideas and strategies that I'm going to share with you, you can use with lots of tools and programs, right? Obviously, I work for Lesson Picks. I want you to do it with Lesson Picks, but I don't want you to feel like, well, if we don't have Lesson Picks, I can't do anything. Now, because we don't want you to feel like, oh, if I don't have Lesson Picks, I can't do this. You guys that are sitting here, and anybody who's out there in live stream land, for the first 50 people that use this code, and you can either do it right now or you can wait. I don't think there's like 100,000 people out there who are, trying to sign up for this right now. But I've got a free 3-month trial for everybody that is watching this right now. You can you can grab it with that QR code. It takes literally seconds to sign up for it, especially if you use the QR code. It should take you to the sign up page where it's going to have a code put in, ALATEXPO, like Alabama AT Expo, right? And so let me know. Sure.
Get them a little bit away from each other. If possible.
Creating feedback or something. It's all right, because now we're giving everybody a chance to get their codes. Or you can use that link that's right there, and it's just lessonpicks.com/cert, like certificate, /ALATEXPO, and the capitalization doesn't actually matter. It is not a bit.ly. So that's for everybody to be able to try Lesson Picks after this session and have fun with it and experience all the wonder that is Lesson Picks. So everybody get that in there, and it's in there. If you grab the slides, you can get it right from the slides too. Whoops, let's go. So I do want to kind of set the stage and talk a little bit about what in the world is emergent literacy, right? And why are we even talking about literacy instruction for learners with complex needs? It's because it's really important for everybody to develop literacy skills. Has anybody here heard of or read the book Literacy Instruction, Comprehensive Literacy Instruction for All by Dr. Karen Erickson and Dr. David Copenhaver? So a few hands raised. A lot of the information that I'm sharing about emergent literacy comes from this book. If you walk out of here today and you have to decide to spend your $30 or so on the book Comprehensive Literacy Instruction for All or Lesson Picks, I'm going to tell you, go buy the book and then you'll find the money for Lesson Picks. Okay, but go buy the book. It is really, really invaluable. If you are working with individuals of any age who have complex disabilities and people have said, they are too disabled to be able to learn how to read, I'm going to shake my head and say, no, they're not. And that it's important. And when we talk about what reading is, there's all different levels of it. And it's really important. In fact, literacy, we talk about functional skills. How many people here are in settings where you work with students who are on a functional life skills curriculum, right? Okay. The most functional skill of all in the world is literacy. Okay, so this is a graphic. I'm not going to read it out loud to you. You'll have it in there that talks about different components of literacy instruction. And it talks about emergent, and we'll talk a little bit about what that means, mixed ability groups, and then conventional readers. And if you want to learn all there is to know about comprehensive literacy for all, there's a fabulous Facebook group, the CLFA, Comprehensive Literacy for All Facebook group, and it's linked in the presentation there. It's run by a very good friend of mine, Alyssa Wern, and it is, gosh, I don't know how many members it's got now, thousands and thousands of members at this point from all over the globe who are all interested in learning how to support literacy instruction for individuals with complex needs. I keep clicking the wrong way. So I'm going to talk just a little bit about what I mean by literacy and the components of literacy, and in particular, components of literacy for emergent readers and writers. And when I talk about emergent readers and writers, those are the way that we kind of decide, well, are we emergent, or are we like on the road right now to conventional? So emergent readers and writers may not know all the letters of the alphabet. They may not know all of the sound symbol correspondence, like what sound a letter makes. They may or may not yet have a consistent communication system that allows them to interact and talk about books and reading and literacy. And they may or may not be always engaged in literacy experiences, right? Conventional literacy is when we've got all those letters of the alphabet, when we have a way to communicate consistently, when we are engaged in doing literacy work, and when we are and when we have forgot what the last piece is, but that's okay. But you kind of get the idea. So you know, emergent literacy is for everyone, right? It doesn't matter what their skill set is, right? We can address those emergent literacy skills. And so the components of literacy instruction include, and this is adapted from the Erickson and Copenhagen book, shared and dialogic reading. And those are interactions that happen between an adult and a student, a learner, a child, as they look at and read a book together. So if you've ever read a book to a young child, anybody here, a parent or a grandparent, an aunt, right, a godparent, and if you've read a book to that little 6-month-old baby, because you know it's so important, right, you're engaging in a shared reading experience, right, because you're responding to what they say when they see the picture that they like and they get all excited, or when they hear a familiar rhyme or a word or the cadence in your voice. That's all a shared reading experience, right? Shared writing is when adults and learners together work on creating a text, a message, right? And it's usually when adults are scribing for the student as they dictate a message, right? Alphabet knowledge is the knowledge of alphabet letter names, the sounds, and the shapes, like that graphic shape, like what does an A look like, right? That's all part of alphabet knowledge. Phonological awareness, and that's the recognition of the units of sound that make up spoken language within words and sentences. So when we break apart the word cat into cat, that is using our phonological awareness skills. And that larger scope of like phonics instruction is part of phonological awareness. Independent reading, right? It's when students are interacting with books without assistance, however they are choosing and interested in interacting with books. And this often mirrors their understanding of book handling and being read to, right? Are they, how they're choosing to interact with that. And then independent writing is when we structure opportunities to give students access and control over every aspect of the writing process. Now, independent writing includes things like scribbling, right? Includes things like making marks on paper or making marks with a computer device, right? It's not just about like, I now can write a full sentence. We do independent writing at very, very early stages of literacy development. So the role of shared reading and the role of communication in shared reading, right? So it is a collaborative, shared reading is a collaborative literacy learning activity. And it's kind of based on what I said, like that reading of bedtime stories, like that we do as a child or as a parent, or as a child and parent, or as an adult in a child's life, right? But what the research shows is that children with significant and complex disabilities are often read with disproportionately less than their non-disabled peers, or in different ways, right? They're not always given, afforded those opportunities to have that interactive, that dialogic part of it. It's not because we're neglecting our kids with significant disabilities. It's because there's so many other things that are often going on with the medical needs, the positioning needs, other challenges that families encounter. And so we're often, as these kids come to being school age, even if it's like that preschool age or kindergarten age, they haven't had that breadth and the number of hours of opportunities of those reading experiences. So they're already starting off at that disadvantage, not because parents are not vested in this, but because the reality is that there's a lot going on in these children and these families' lives. I want to talk about a couple of things that are real important to know about adapted books and adapted reading kinds of activities, and what I feel really, really strongly about. So symbolated text, right? When we've got almost all of the words or most of the words in a text have a picture above them to show what that word is. And there's a lot of curriculum out there and resources out there that use this as a way of providing literacy instruction for learners with complex needs, or individuals who are using AAC systems, or individuals who may have significant disabilities. But the use of symbolated text is not an evidence-based practice. And there is actually no evidence that shows that it supports literacy instruction. And there's actually some evidence that it makes learning to read more difficult. Now, that is a little bit different than the idea of having illustrations, right? Illustrations actually can give us information that helps us understand and comprehend what we're reading. And it's a real important part of context in that page, right? So the text on there, it says, Pug sees Tad, okay? And when we read that from the picture there, we can figure out that Pug is the dog, even if we don't know what a pug is, that Pug is the dog because he's the one that's looking, and that Tad is the one that's in bed because his eyes are not looking at Pug, right? So it gives us information. That's an illustration. That's important information. So we're not saying, oh, no pictures, right? It's just, but we don't want to rely on an image to give us that text, to give us that decoding, that text stuff. Now, this is also really important. AAC symbols are not symbolated text. So I'm not saying, oh, don't use your symbols with communication devices. We know that symbols on communication devices are a really important way that individuals are able to communicate. It increases speed of communication, often, right, to more quickly locate a word, whether they are literate yet or not yet literate. So we're not at all talking about that. And we're not at all talking about not having explicit instruction about what a particular symbol means, what word that it might be conveying. So I just kind of wanted to lay that groundwork out there, that as I'm going through the rest of this presentation, I'm not going to be showing you any examples of symbolated text, because I don't believe, and not just me, but the research out there shows that that is not an evidence-based way of supporting literacy instruction. So how many people have heard or have had somebody say, right, yeah, but this person is too disabled, too low functioning, too whatever, right, to learn how to read? No, right? First of all, we're not going to use the term low functioning. We might use high support needs, right? But no individual is to anything, right, to be able to benefit. And when we give learners access to literacy, we give them the world, right? We lose ourselves in literacy. We give access. So David Yoder said a number of years ago, nobody is to anything to benefit from meaningful opportunities to learn how to communicate, play, read, and write. So I actually have a picture of a student that I worked with for many, many years. Her name is Lizzie, and she had very complex needs. She is an augmentative communication user. She uses a switch to access her communication device, and she's, has a host of other complex needs. She uses a wheelchair for mobility, all of that. She also authored this book, The Adventures of a Silly Cat. She self-published it, and she would have been one of those kids that somebody might have said, oh, Lizzie is it's not functional enough for her. She needs to be able to, right? But no, we focused on literacy instruction with Lizzie from early age, from kindergarten on up. That's her when she was in high school there, behind you. She's, oh my gosh, is she like 29 now? She's like, it blows me away. And we're friends on Facebook. And I know that the work that we did, like aside from the fact that she wrote this book, is meaningful because she can, she sends out Facebook messages. She's a big Dallas Cowboys fan, right? And so, and I am too. And so like during football season, we'll have our messages going back and forth about, go Cowboys. And so I always like to point out Lizzie. So let's talk about some of those components of literacy instruction. We're not going to go super in depth. We won't have the time to go super in depth into each one, but I want to show you some examples of ways that you can engage your learners in comprehensive literacy instruction, right? How you can work on that emergent literacy. And we're going to show you how to do this using resources that were created in lesson picks. And again, this might give you ideas for how you could use other tools that you have access to as well as using lesson picks. So let's talk a little bit about alphabet knowledge, right? One of my favorite things to do, and it is an evidence-based practice, is to have what we call the letter of the day. Now, how many of you all have been in classrooms where it's been a letter of the week? Anybody? Yeah, people are nodding their heads, right? So I'm talking about the letter of the day, not the letter of the week. When you do the letter of the week, right, there's 26 letters in the alphabet, you do not get through the alphabet 2 times, right? You might be hitting that letter hard for a week, but then you don't come back to that letter. And if you are working with individuals with complex needs who require lots of repetition, you're repeating in that week, but then you don't circle back to that letter for a really long time, and you might not get to it at all because we don't have 52 weeks of school a year, right? We're not going to get through, those 26. But if we do a letter of the day, we actually cycle through the alphabet 5 to 7 times, depending on the length of your school year. And so we're getting through that alphabet much, much more frequently. And so letter of the day is an evidence-based strategy to address that alphabet knowledge. So some of my favorite things to do to have both explicit and embedded instruction around letter of the day are things like alphabet books, and not just like an A, B, C, D, E, F, G alphabet book, an alphabet book that's focused on that particular letter. And we'll look at some examples of that. Finding the letter of the day in texts across the curriculum. So maybe you're reading a book in science about the weather or something like that. And part of what you're doing as you're reading it is, oh, look, there's that letter of the day, right? And, you know, the S, letter of the day is S, and I see it in sun. And then games that focus on the letter of the day. So that LOTD, letter of the day, my little abbreviation. We love abbreviations in education, don't we? Right, okay. And so this is an example. How many of you guys have ever played Zingo or used Zingo with kids, right? It's like a really great alphabet-based game. And with lots of learning and literacy. Well, in Lesson Picks, you can actually make custom Zingo cards, right? So that you put them on top of like those regular little pieces that you have like with your Zingo game, but you can have it be exactly what you're working on. So if you were working on the letter B, for example, it will let you, and I'll just go into, oh, and you know what? I got so excited, I forgot to turn on my, let me go back and turn on my live captions. I just looked at that. All right, there we go. Let's make sure it's on of the screen. I got it to work before. Oh, there we go. Include microphone audio. All right, there we go. Okay, good. Sorry about that. My bad before. All right, so if people are wondering, what did I just do? You should have come to Chris's session this morning because he showed this, but it's the idea of using the built-in captioning within, I'm using the built-in captioning within Microsoft in order to live caption. For anybody that might have challenges with hearing what I'm saying, especially because I'm not separately mic'd right now. I'm just mic'd through the live stream feed. So apologies for not turning that on right now. So here's this Zingo game in Lesson Picks. It is a free download. So that means whether you are a Lesson Picks subscriber or not, you can simply download that as a PDF and be able to have it. And you can see how like you would be able to fit that onto your little Zingo cards, if you guys. And so these are all words that have the letter B. Now, they don't all start with the letter B, right? But they all have the letter B in there. So if that's your letter of the day, it's important. We don't just look for words that start with the letter B. We need to find the letter B inside all of our words as well. I'm going to toggle back over to this. There we go. And so that's just one of many adapted games that are available in Lesson Picks for commercially available games out there. Like we have it for Caribou, we have it for headbands, we have it for, oh, I'm blanking. What's the one with all the people in it and the little, Guess Who? Thank you. I'm like, yeah. So I was talking about alphabet books, right? And so these are some custom alphabet books that it's easy to create or find in Lesson Picks, right? So I'm going to show you a bunch of things that you can just go in there into Lesson Picks and they are ready for you to use in our sharing center. So a big part of Lesson Picks is the sharing center where people can choose, people who are creating resources in Lesson Picks can choose to share them with anyone in the Lesson Picks community. I've made a bunch of these as free downloads, and anything that's a free download, you are welcome to put out there, share it however you would like. Anything that's not a free download, when you sign up for your free 3-month trial, you'll have access to it too. So, you know, a few different ones that are on there. So it might be just the Book of D. Let's take a look at that, right? So this is the Book of D, and let's just go ahead and take a download of it. Oh, and I'm not logged in. So if you're not logged in and it's not a free download, you can still download anything, but it's going to have that great big watermark in it. So let me go in and make sure that I am logged into my Lesson Picks account. There we go. Now we'll go back to that. Okay, so now let's download our PDF. All right, there we go, without the watermark, right? So it's a book of D. Maybe your letter of the day is the D, right? So we've got lots of, let's make it a little smaller so that it's not like these, you can see the whole page, right? So it's a PDF. It downloads just as a PDF, easy to print, easy to use. We'll talk about some other ways that we can download things, right? D is for dog, and D is for dinosaur, and D is for dance, and D is for donut. Super simple, no fussy backgrounds, right? Makes it really perceptible to many of our students, right? So you could take, these are all things that just happen to start with D, but you could capitalize on students' interests, right? If there's particular things that they really like, that it's really motivating for them, you can choose those interests for them, right? All right, let's go back into lesson picks. Or go back into thing. Another style of book that you can make in lesson picks is, and this one's a free sample, so it's available all the time, whether you're a lesson pick subscriber or not. And this one is around the theme of ocean animals, right? So A is for angelfish. And the way that this particular one works, I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom. Notice how it's got those blocks there. So it's a matching book. We talked about, like, we're not going to use symbolated text, but it doesn't mean that we might not want pictures or symbols that we're matching, that we're applying to what we're doing. But I'm not symbolating all the text. We're just giving an opportunity for some interaction, because sometimes when kids might not be engaged in a literacy or in a reading activity, it's because they need something to do while they are engaged in it. And so this is, you've got all of the pictures that come with this book, right? And all the letters of the alphabet that go with it too, that then you can use as a matching, right? You cut those out, put some Velcro on, and we can have a book that is manipulable, right? That they can interact with and not just turn the pages and read. Let's go back in here and look at a couple of other, we'll look at one more, and it might be just around a theme, right? So this was, this particular book was made to go along with the story Black Beauty from the Readtopia curriculum. Readtopia is a literacy curriculum from Building Wings, the company Building Wings. They used to be a part of Don Johnston, but now they're their own company, Building Wings. And one of the books in the curriculum is the book Black Beauty. Their adapted version of Black Beauty is a simplified version. It is not adapted with symbolated text, but it is simplified to make it more accessible for individuals who are emergent at an emergent stage of literacy. And so wanted to create something that went along with the letter of the day for it, but that was still focused on relating back to what we were learning in that book. So we found lots of H words that had things to do with horses. Anybody who was not aware of what Black Beauty is, Black Beauty is a book about a horse whose name is Black Beauty, right? It was one of my daughter's favorite books growing up, right? So we've got H is for halter, H is for hammer. The blacksmith uses a hammer. So this is all relating back to that background information that they're learning from this book, but we're really explicitly focusing on the letter of the day that we were working on. All right, let's look at a few more things. So phonological awareness. Part of understanding of phonological awareness, we talked about that as the idea of what sounds, the way that sounds make up the words that we are speaking and reading. And one of the earlier syllabication and understanding of syllables is a part of that. An early part of syllabication understanding is compound words, right? That we can break apart a word into its component parts. And for compound words, a lot of times that is an easier concept, right? So the idea like a starfish together is a starfish. So this uses our puzzle template. Oh, I don't have that. Nope, I don't have that one linked in there. I'll make sure I'll go back and link that particular one in, but it's using our puzzle template, right? Because we can have puzzles that are either 2 pieces or 3 pieces, and you cut these out, right? So we, popcorn gives you popcorn. And then this one is with the game. It's a game called I Have Who Has. Has anybody ever played the game I Have Who? Got some nods. If you do not know how to play the game I Have Who Has, it's like a Go Fish style game. Just Google I Have Who Has. How do you play the rules? It's and so this one is with those compound words like, I have back, who has pack, because we're going to put together that word to to produce backpack, right? So understanding that syllabication of words, that early syllabication of words. So with that, we also want to talk about syllables. And this is one of my favorite templates in Lesson Picks is our clothespin cards. And so this is one to work on the syllable knowledge, right? And we call it clothespin cards because we want to make learning active. Same way those puzzle cards are great because kids are moving and manipulating things. They're getting to do more than like check off a box on a worksheet. It's something for them to do with their hands. And so with the syllable counting cards, the template, let me go into that, the template is, and by the way, when you look at anything in Lesson Picks and you're like, how did they make that? All of our tools, all of our activities are made with templates, and the template is the material type. And so it'll always say right here that it's what it is. So this one is the clothespin literacy cards. And I'm going to show you how easy it is to make it. I'm actually going to go ahead. Everything in Lesson Picks, when you make it, you have to put images into your tray. And we have an extensive clip art library with over 70,000 different images in there. So let's go in and find, let's go find some images. We'll just go into, it's very buggy in Alabama in the summer. Wouldn't you all say that, right? Is that true, right? That's one of the things. So let's go find some bugs. And so I'm going to get like a bee, and I'm going to get a beetle, and I'm going to get a butterfly, and I'm just going to get like one more, like let's get a caterpillar. All right, so I would put more in there if I was looking, but we're going to go ahead and create materials. When I click on that create materials, it's going to take us in where we choose the template. So anybody in here, I forgot to ask this before, has anybody in here ever used Lesson Picks before? Oh, yay, a couple of people. That's awesome. Anybody here ever used Boardmaker before? All right, a bunch more hands went up, right? So Boardmaker, if you've used Boardmaker before, you find your template first, and then you put your pictures into it. In Lesson Picks, it's the reverse. You find your pictures first, and then you put them in your template. And so once we get our pictures, I'm going to go find that clothespin card, that clothespin literacy, right? This is actually, we've got about 1,000 different templates. I could scroll through them, but this is also, a search bar. So there we go. I can do my clothespin literacy cards. I'm going to click next. I've got my words in there. If I needed to change them for any reason, I could totally change them. I actually like to use this little drop down. I'm going to make them all lowercase because these are words that kids most likely are going to encounter lowercase. The only time they're going to see those words in uppercase is when it's at the start of a sentence, right? Okay. I could translate that if maybe I am working on literacy with somebody whose language is not English, right? But we're going to keep it in English right now. I'm going to call these my bug syllable cards. Okay, there's a few different choices here with this drop-down menu. This would be for like matching a picture to a picture to a word to a picture, but I want to count the syllables, right? I can choose to show the text or not. I want to show that image title. I want that literacy support, and I'm going to click finish. And as quickly as that, I've got my cards, right? So now we've got B. Now you're going to see, you don't want to pick a word that has more than 4 syllables in it, right? Because it's always going to give you 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And so one of those you want to be the correct answer. And so easy as that, I can cut them out. We call them clothespin literacy cards because I like to use these with a clothespin, right? So that we are getting some multisensory activities in there. They're pinching that clothespin and clipping it on. The other thing that I like to use with it is a Play-Doh, some Play-Doh, where they get to pinch a piece of Play-Doh. I forgot to ask people what they are. Who's an SLP in this room? Awesome. Who's an occupational therapist in this room? Yay for you for coming to a literacy workshop. It is such an important part of what you do as an OT. Any educators in this room? Awesome. And you guys you work on it all, right? You work on language, fine motor, everything. What other professions do we have in here? Just shout it out. Did I get it? I'm sorry, say that one more time. Oh, I love you. Thank you so much. When we have administrators that come to these kinds of workshops, you have the ability to disseminate this information to so many people. Thank you. Thank you. I'm a former administrator of special education too, and I know how valuable your time is also. So thank you for making the time to come to this. That's awesome. Your district is so lucky to have you be so vested in the real hard work that educators are doing. Anyways, with Play-Doh, get back to, it's like bird walk out there somewhere. I'll just let you know, I don't usually have caffeine, but the only coffee available to me this morning was caffeinated. So I am a little over caffeinated today. Like, all right, so with Play-Doh, you take a little pinch of Play-Doh, they roll it in a ball, and then they get to smash it on there. So again, it's more than just like, checking it off or coloring it. Now, if we do have somebody with more significant motor needs, you might do something like a bingo dauber or some sort of adapted way that they can mark those cards. But we want to make it as interactive as possible as we can. All right, let's go back. Sure.
Because I'm not familiar with lesson pick, but going back to that template,
Yep.
say I wanted to make it like visually high contrast. Could you black it out and make like the beetle white or even red?
Well, you could, or you could do it even easier and do it like this. So actually one of our, let's find a good picture to do it with. So we have a high contrast image generator so we're going off on a little bird walk, but this is great. We have a high contrast image generator feature of Lesson Picks where you can take any image that's in Lesson Picks and make it a high contrast image, right? So, and there's a tutorial for everything I'm showing you. There's a tutorial on the website for it. But if I go and click if you noticed before, I was clicking on the plus sign to put it into my tray, but if I just click on that image, it takes me to a large version of that image, and I can click the recolor and customize tool. And if I add this high contrast filter, that one did not turn out well. I do not like that one. I'm gonna actually, let's do an undo and let's see if I can make that one better. I'm gonna do a width. I'm gonna choose a different picture. I love it when I don't test something and I just go ahead and do it. That one was not a great example. So let's find a better picture. We'll just get like this picture of this bug right here. And I'm going to recolor and customize it. I'm going to add that high contrast filter. Okay, so much better with that picture. Sometimes you'll find a picture that doesn't work well. I actually need to note that down so that our artist can go in and improve that picture drawing so that it'll work better with the high contrast filter. So I can do that. If I needed the outline color to be a different color, maybe, right, I can, maybe the teacher of the visually impaired wanted something to differentiate, the outline of that. I could do that. And I can also change the background color. So maybe let's change that background because that's what you were asking. Like, could I put a background to it, right? So I could make the background black, or I could make the background depending on what that student's visual needs would be, right? So we have the ability to make that, right? So now I can save that. It's going to be in my library. If you go look for this picture, you're not going to see it online, right? It's because I made it for my library and then I have that ability. So I can take any image that I have and make it high contrast. So thank you. That was an awesome question to ask. I'm going to go on and go to that. So some other things that we might be working on as a part of our phonological awareness or our phonics instruction is working on those word families, also known as onsets and rhymes, and it's R-I-M-E-S. They do rhyme, but the onset is like in the word sit, the onset is the S, the S, and the rhyme is the it, or that word family for it, right? So like sit and fit. Okay, so this is one of our templates where, let's take a look at it. It is our beginning, middle, and end template, but it is a way so that we can, now, there's nothing, it's not like, you know, at, right? But knowing that if I use this with a word with 3 sounds to it, I can cut that up and have kids work on that understanding of this word has 3 sounds that make up that word, at, right? And so I can use that. So again, super easy using one of those templates. This is another one of my favorite, these are all my favorite templates. I love them all. But some kids really enjoy like a picture search activity, right? It's a fun way. Your OT shaking your head because you're working on some great visual perceptual skills with that. And so with our find the picture template, I can have text, right? So this one, it's too teeny tiny to see there. So let's download it so we can see it and blow it up. Right, so it's got, I chose to have the text here, and then they can find that those pictures that go with it. So for a learner that might be a little farther along with their phonics journey, and they can decode those words and then find the picture that goes with it, right? Like hot is going to be right there. So fun ways of being able to engage learners with very specific resources that are going to meet those learning needs. Another one is our, did you have a question or were you just stretching? Okay.
But if I was wanting to make a symbol supported book, say
Mhm.
I had a hardback book, and you know, I spent a lot of time finding the fox and the hound pictures. Can I import pictures?
Yep, absolutely. Right, right. So if you wanted to, like, maybe you had your hardback book and you wanted a picture that they could grab off, like with Velcro, and be able to use that. So yep, you can actually add your own pictures in to Lesson Picks. So under the Your Lesson Picks tab, there is a place where you can upload your own photos. So whether it's pictures, you know, from whatever you have, chances are we probably have the picture that you might be looking for, right? Like if you wanted to find, you know, like that picture of that fox, I can find it. He wants that from the fox. So if you, right, yeah. Yep. And yep. So if you, if you've grabbed that picture, that image, you can upload it and be able to use your own pictures, right? Because we know we've got kids that, we want to make this meaningful for them with the images and the topics that are really, really high interest for them. So this is just one of our, another one of our templates where you could be having, matching the, the idea is we're going to cut out all of these shamrock pieces, and then kids are going to match them together, right? Like dog and Jeep and hat, right? So we've got that as well. So I do want to show you, I'm like just looking at my time because I've got way more than I thought, how easy it is to create custom games with Lesson Picks. Games are fun, right? And when we play games, learning becomes more fun, right? And these are all different types of games that you can create in Lesson Picks. So bingo and board games and dominoes, card games, I have tic-tac-toe and dots and boxes, and then adapting those off the shelf games. And so things like our letter bingo, right? We talked about that letter of the day. Well, let's have a bingo game where all of the pictures in there are related to that letter of the day. But even more fun is have your learners help design their own games. They're going to be the ones vested in it, right? They can choose the topic or the theme for that game. They can use the vocabulary that's on their system, right? Whatever way that they're communicating to tell you what images that they want to use. They can choose the type of game, and then you get to create it and play it. Now, I was going to take us all through this, and I was like, we're going to do a couple interactive things. But so let's do it. We're going to do just a simulated version of that, right? Like really quickly. So, all right, guys, like you all are my students here. What should we make a game about? What should be the topic of our game today? What's something that really interests you? Dinosaurs. Okay, I thought we were going to go for like wine or something like that, but but let's do dinosaurs, right? So we can go. I can do this a few different ways. We can search for the words, right? We can search for the words, or I can go into our animals where we've got our dinosaurs, right? And then we can talk about, well, what dinosaurs should we pick? And so I might be telling my friends that are learning how to use how to navigate their augmentative communication system, or maybe I'm going to have my friends that that's no problem. This is part of their spoken vocabulary because it is the topic that they are passionate about, right? And so, that kid that I cannot get to, as a speech language pathologist, I cannot get them to correctly pronounce, the word eat, but they have no problem with ankylosaurus because it's an important word for them. Eat, they get fed, doesn't matter. But ankylosaurus, they, want to be able to say that. So we could talk about together, like, all right, what dinosaurs? Now, maybe I've got some friends that don't have or don't know where those dinosaurs are located on their device, or maybe they just don't have them. What might be some other ways they could tell me what pictures that they would want to choose, what they might be able to say? Descriptive teaching, exactly. So I might say, well, what color dinosaur should we use? Maybe they're going to tell me, right? They're going to tell me fly, right? And then I'm going to know that means they want like that pterodactyl on there. Or maybe they're going to tell me, the, swims. And we've got this guy here. I don't even know how to say that. Plesiosaurus, I don't know. But I bet that one of my friends could pronounce that better for me than I can, right? And so it doesn't even have to be that they don't have that language on there, but they can use the language that they have available to them to tell me what they want, and then we can build that together and choose, do we want to do a bingo game? Do we want to do tic-tac-toe? Do we want to do, like, what do we want to do? So that when we go to play that with them, do you think that they're going to be more excited to play a game that they helped create, or the one that I just put in front of them that they, didn't have any input in? Right? That was kind of a rhetorical question, right? Right? They're going to be more excited about the game that they helped create. Oh, I'm never going to have enough time, but that's okay. So let's go on to independent reading. Again, we want to give all learners access to books and reading opportunities, regardless of what their literacy skills. And so making your own custom books. And when Chris did his session earlier this morning, and he asked for an AI tool, I put as my tool in there, or my use of AI to create a decodable reader. And somebody said, what's a decodable reader? So I want to make sure I talk a little bit about that, right? So when we are working on literacy instruction with kids, we can give them books that are just really wonderful and interesting, that maybe have predictable text in them, right? We like a book that has a repeated line because it helps them practice that language that goes with it. They can anticipate it. A book like this book here, It Is Hot, would be an example of a book with some predictable text in it. And we're actually going to take a look at this book in a little different way in a minute, right? And this is a book that I created, right? Summertime is here with lesson picks images. Summertime is here. In the summer, it is very hot outside, right? It's got, okay, when it's hot. So here are the predictable text. When it's hot, we can go to the swimming pool. When it's hot, we can play with a beach ball. When it's hot, so I've got that predictable text in there. But kids memorize that. And just because they will read when it's hot doesn't mean they're actually decoding that word. So a decodable text is a text that is specifically using words and sounds, word families, sounds, alphabet, that they've had explicit instruction around. So an example of that is the book Sun and Mud, right? So this particular person created it, and it's focused on the short U sound, right? So that was the sound that they were working on, was that short right? And so all of the, or primary the primary words in this text, right? The sun is up, it is hot, right? We still might have that hot in there. I dug and dug in the mud. So it's really, that's a decodable reader where it's focused on a sound or a set of like a word set of sounds like the maybe or in this, right, that we've worked on. It is fun in the sun, right? The pup is up. The pup can run and run. So we're working on that decodable, that text that we can decode. So that's kind of the difference between decodable text and predictable text. Both have value to them, but for different reasons. That predictable text is going to be more of that language that we might be addressing. The decodable is going to be more on that phonics work that we are addressing. Now, I did want to point out, because Chris was, when Chris was talking about AI, I was like, oh, I should show them how I often will make, I'm not a creative when it comes to creating decodable text. So did anybody here go to Chris's session this morning? A couple of people. You guys have to take a look at his thing. So you could actually use an AI tool like Bard and help you. So if I want, my prompt here is going to be write a story using words that I'm going to do one syllable. The more specific we are, one syllable words that end in OT. Write a story. Oops. At a first grade level, using one syllable words that end in OT about a girl named Dot and a robot named Bot. We'll see what I get. The more that you, right? Let's see what we get. It usually gives me a starting place. Dot got a new bot. The bot's name was Bot. Dot and Bot were not a lot alike. Dot was small and round, Bot was big and square, Dot liked to play. So I've got a place to start, right? Like how, because I am not that like creative, like, oh, okay, now I got to think of it. And what am I going to write about and all of that. So where we go. So we've got, right, I could scale that down, make it easier, but it's focusing on the thing. So using AI to help you create, and then I could put that into, I could find those pictures that I want in lesson picks. All right, we're good. So pretty much everything that I've talked about so far has been about things that I'm going to print out and use. But it doesn't just have to be printables. I'm going to show you a couple of different ways that you can use lesson picks, not just as a printable. Now, anybody use the software, the tool Cami? Anybody have that? We've got a couple of people. So Cami is a wonderful tool. A lot of school districts have it. There's some free. It's one of those freemium kinds of tools where you can do some things in it for free for a little while, and then you have to purchase it. But one of the things that it does is it provides optical character recognition, which means it will take text that is not accessible and makes it accessible for text to speech. When you create a resource in Lesson Picks and download it as a PDF or in any other format, it is not accessible text. Text that's on there is just a picture, right? It's not accessible text, but I can make it accessible in Cami. So I've downloaded, let's go over here a second. I'm going to show you guys how to do that. So in Cami, and it's a Google extension, right? I can take any PDF that I have access to, right? And I'm just gonna access it here, and I happen to have that Sun and Mud, right? And it's just a PDF, and it's a totally inaccessible PDF. There is no accessibility in that PDF at all, right? But I want it to be accessible. I want to give that opportunity for my student who might be reading this independently to be able to hear that text. And so it usually will come up with asking if I want to do text recognition. It didn't with that time. So I'm just going to go to the menu here and do text recognition for it. And it is going to ask me to authorize my Google Drive. And now what was before completely inaccessible, right? I'd said nothing. Now I can go and do the read aloud of it. Oh, it still says it's still running text recognition. Let me go into one that I think I already did. All right.
It is hot. By
Right.
MRS. P.
It's me.
Copyright Lesson Picks, Inc.
It's reading the text at the bottom. there.
2020.
Right now I can go on to the next page and have it read there. So it took something that was completely inaccessible before and it makes it accessible. There's a lot more cool things that I can do in a tool like Cami, but that's one of my favorite features, that I can really quickly make something that's not accessible. So a little app smashing in there. Now, don't forget about the AAC supports. While we want everybody to have a robust communication system, not everybody has one yet. Right. And so Lesson Picks provides you with resources to either be able to find in our sharing center or create communication resources. And so whether it is a core board with some fringe vocabulary there, or whether it's an eye gaze board, and sometimes our users, our students they're using their high tech, but maybe they're in a position that they can't access it. Maybe they're in a place where they're not going to take their high tech device to the beach or something like that. And so we have things even like core eye gaze boards. This is a free sample of a core eye gaze board. So using that core vocabulary for an eye gaze user. Sometimes we've got books and literacy resources that we're already going to use, like our favorite books that are out there. One of my favorites, summertime reads, is the book How to Code a Sand Castle by Josh Funk. It's a really fun book, and Lesson Picks has ready-to-use resources. I'm just keeping an eye on my time. Ready-to-use resources that are ready to download. So we have a whole section of the website under our articles called In a Story, where we've got all of these awesome books that have ready-to-use resources to go with it, like How to Code a Sandcastle. And all you have to do is go in there and find vocabulary for it, question and answer visuals, stick puppet figures to make that book reading more engaging, get to design their own sandcastle. And code and do some low-tech, no-tech coding. So tons and tons of different resources. We've got that syllable counting in there, and lots more. And those are just ready to go, ready for you to use. I am going to run out of time, and we're not going to talk about writing in there. If you've got the link, I was going to do a fun writing activity, but I talked too much about other things, which is okay. And so if you want more information on Lesson Picks, you can email us at licensing@lessonpicks. We've got, it's $36 a year for an individual subscription. So one adult user that you can use this with all of the kiddos that you work with. All of the learners that you work with. I really don't like the word kiddos, and I don't like it when I use that word. All of the learners that you work with, or we have group subscriptions as well. So if there's a number of you in your district, in your clinic, wherever it is, and that you want to be able to have access to it, we have group subscriptions. We provide free live webinar training for our groups, and we also, any students in here, university students, any professors, any adjunct faculty, or so we provide Lesson Picks for free to university students. All you have to do is have a faculty member get in touch with us at that same licensing@lessonpicks email. Have them get in touch with us, and we set up a 45-minute to an hour training webinar for the students, and they either attend a live webinar, or we give you a pre-recorded, and we train you guys all the students on how to use it. And then we give the students and the faculty free access to Lesson Picks for the duration of those students' time in their program. And so we have a lot of universities that every year they bring in their students, whether it's special ed, speech and language, occupational therapy, early childhood, whatever it might be. And we just get them set up every year so that they can use it in their work. So I'm going to just leave you with a thought: is what magic are you going to create with Lesson Picks or with other tools that you already have access to? So thank you guys so much. If you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer them, but I know it is lunchtime right now and we all want to hit that taco bar, but I'll be around for a couple more hours. And so feel free to hit me up. I didn't get to some of my fun activities, but I'll know now that this is longer than an hour session. So thank you guys so much for joining me today.